Man, what's going on, everybody? I hope you guys are doing well. Welcome back to another Double I Swipe, formerly known as I Swipe, formerly known as Is It Still Worth It? And right now, we're going to take a look at another phone that I actually have feelings for. Like, honestly, I know it's weird, but this phone actually broke my heart one time, and I don't even want to tell you the story. But the LG G6 is a phone that, if there's one phone that has depreciated a ton in terms of like the monetary value, how much it costs, most LG phones go down in value like crazy. So if you plan on getting a phone and reselling it for a profit, this is probably not the company you want to go towards. They make really, really good phones, but I think their marketing is totally off whack. But I did an II swipe in late 2018. I still am not used to saying that, but I figured I would do another one in 2019. I did that one in later part of 2018, and I did early 2018 as well. But before looking forward in the phone, let's go ahead and take a step back and see if anything changed. I'll tell you right now, nothing has really changed about this phone since that last video I did. It did come out in 2017, so a little bit over a year old. Since I did that late 2018 video, it's still on the same exact software, Android 8.0, so that's kind of where we're at. It's still planning on getting Android Pie, but I will go into that in a second. But looking around the body, it doesn't feel the most premium thing in the world, but it's definitely decent, okay? It has a 5.7-inch screen on the front. It's IPS. It's not OLED. I really wish it was, but it is 1440p, and I will say that the IPS panel on this thing is definitely on the better side of things. It's definitely not bad. It's not a bad IPS. It's definitely a good one. So all in all, the panel is very, very nice. Now, the funny thing is that it's still kind of bezel-less, but the competition and the phones we have now are definitely a lot better looking than this thing. Even the LG G7, it added the notch, but this phone, this is one of the last phones that kind of slimmed down the bezels, but didn't really have a notch. So if you're not really into that whole notch design, then this is one of the few options that you have. And LG was actually kind of early on in this trend of like slimming down the bezels, because when I owned that LG G2, if you guys remember at all, I don't know why you guys would, that was one of the main phones I used for a long time, I think like a year and a half. And I remember just holding it, I'm like, man, this phone, literally, I feel like I'm in the future. Like when you get like a Tesla or something, I don't know if you guys own a Tesla, but like hopping into like a Lamborghini or something, you're like, man, I just made it. Like I balled out. I was able to buy this thing. That was me with the LG G2. That phone I bought for like $70, and I was flexing on everybody. And just the way that thing looked, and I hated iPhones at the time, and I'm like, man, look at the LG G2. Look at this thing. My phone looks better than yours, bigger screen, everything. So that kind of shows how early LG was on this whole train of like making the phone look as good as it can, but it really kind of fell off towards like the G6, G7 era. But man, that was a huge tangent. Looking at the bottom, we do have a USB Type-C port. Looking on the back, we have dual camera setup. I'll go into that in a second. We also have a fingerprint sensor, so that's super sick. And the coolest thing about this phone is that it does have micro SD card support, so you can put in your micro SD card. I think it's up to 128 gigs, maybe 256, but the options of this phone in terms of memory go up to 128, so that's definitely a good thing, not a bad thing at all. So that's pretty much the exterior and what we got rocking with it on the outside. If you're looking at this thing, I'll probably say it's like a 7.5, 8 out of 10. Bezels are small and respectable, so that's that. Now turning it on, we have Android 8.0. Like I said, there's really been no talks about when it's getting Android Pie, but if I had to take a guess, it's probably going to be in June, like when it got Android Oreo last year. I will say it definitely will get Android Pie. There were some talks that it wouldn't, but because the LG G5 got Android Oreo, that only makes sense for this to get one more version of Android than that. But the LG G7 is supposed to be getting the Android Pie update in the first quarter, so really any time now, I guess, could be released for the LG G6, but I guess we're going to have to wait and see. Now, in terms of the hardware inside of this phone, it has a Qualcomm Snapdragon 821 chipset, it has a quad-core CPU, and it has 4 gigs of RAM. Now, what does that mean? That means this phone is still pretty fast. I hear a lot of people on YouTube especially, they talk about the specs, and they just kind of list them off, and they're like, yada, 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 but that's not good enough. You gotta talk about the actual performance, and man, I'm telling you right now, this phone is fast, okay? And it still surprises me that a lot of people on YouTube look at a phone and they're like, oh man, that phone is 2 years old, it's outdated, it's this, it's that, it's not good enough. Man, I'm telling you, once you actually hold these phones, the differences between one upgrade to another, I've been saying this for years, and now people are starting to say it, but when you're holding this phone, you're flipping through pages and everything, this phone is completely fast. Is it slower than the LG G7? Probably, yeah. Is it slower than the XS Max with the iPhone 10 or all these other phones? Yeah, it probably is slower, but when you're using it day to day, you probably will not notice. If I had to, and if I was using a fully functional LG G2, I would probably notice it slow here and there, but I wouldn't really be complaining too much about it if I'm being completely dead honest. So that's a long-winded answer nobody wanted for how the performance is on this thing, but you know what, for a 2-year-old device, obviously it shouldn't even be that slow. and it really isn't. You know, apps open fine, close fine. I don't really run into too many bugs. Multitasking is awesome. Gaming is perfectly fine as well. It does get kind of hot when playing certain games. Casual games run fine, but when you kind of step up to the more, intensive games, that's when you start getting into those like skip frames, glitch frames here or there, but really it's not the end of the world. I will definitely say the one thing I hate most about the performance, and it's not even a knock to the performance or chipset, it's more so of the software, is just LG's UI. I never really liked it. I just feel like it's super childish. I think LG should kind of take what Samsung's doing now and redefine what their software is. Samsung's doing the One UI thing. Hopefully LG can release their own thing. I mean, dude, every manufacturer should just copy what OnePlus is doing with their software. Their Oxygen OS is so awesome. I love it. I like Oxygen OS more than I like stock Android. So you know what? I'll leave it at that. Hopefully nobody gets offended by that. But that's pretty much that aspect. Okay, now moving on to the camera. We don't have all day. I got to get through this video. I know you guys want me talking about performance forever. It is a dual camera setup, like I said. It's 13 megapixels. And you know what? I like this camera a lot as well. You know, it has tons of features. That's one thing I like about Android more than iOS. The cameras have so many features in them. It can shoot 4K videos, which is awesome. Pictures turn out awesome as well. One thing I like about this camera, and a lot of LG phones do this, is like it has the wide angle effect for the camera. So you can get more of a subject or more of a situation in a photo. And I like that a lot. It really, really adds so much more into a photo. And I dropped a video about the iPhone XI leak, the 2019 new iPhone, whatever they're going to call it. And I think they're going to add this feature into the newer iPhone, but they're kind of pretty late on it, honestly. LG's been doing this for a minute, and I really like the setup they got. And LG's always been pretty good with cameras. Even the G2 that I have, I bring it up all the time. That phone had a pretty good camera until I flashed a custom ROM on it and it totally ruined it. But you know what? It is what it is. Now the front is a 5 megapixel camera, and again, I never really liked the front camera. I don't know why they put such a good camera on the back and then a weird camera on the front, but it is what it is. You know, it's all right. It can shoot HD videos. Pictures turn out pretty decent. But if you're anything like me, you're probably too ugly to use the front camera, so you can go and just not even use it. So that's pretty much it. I'll rate the overall camera of this thing a solid 8 out of 10 easy. Now, if you can't tell, I'm a pretty lenient grader, but one thing I'm not lenient about, one category, is definitely the battery life, okay? And for a phone like this, honestly, it's not the biggest phone in the world. I was kind of expecting it to have like más o menos type of battery life. If you don't know what that means, that pretty much means average in Spanish, but I'll definitely say that the 3300 mAh battery this thing has isn't that bad. But the one thing you have to keep in mind is if you're getting this phone now, you're probably getting it used. So the battery probably has deteriorated a little bit, but I really wouldn't worry about it too much. It's probably like at around 3000 mAh still. I think the battery life is pretty good. This phone also has wireless charging, so that's definitely a plus. So overall, I mean, you're looking at a pretty decent package, you know? Now, some notable things to note. This is pretty important. Like I said, the fingerprint sensors on the back. Cool thing is you do have IP68 dust and water resistance. So for some reason you're like, oh, I'm around a body of water. Oh, I can't swim. Go ahead. If you haven't seen that Vine, I don't know what you've been doing with your life, but if you splash some water on it, it's not going to matter. Don't even worry about it. Like I said, it does have USB Type-C, so you're kind of future-proofed it a little bit. And this is probably the one thing I didn't really want to bring up, but I kind of have to if I'm going to be completely transparent. There's still been a lot of complaints about LG phones. You know, they kind of had that reputation of boot looping. This is the area where it kind of stopped, but I still see complaints not regularly, but sometimes about the boot looping issues that even the LG G6 had. The LG G5 is pretty prevalent. The phones prior, my LG G2 had it for a little bit until I flashed a custom ROM, surprisingly, and it fixed it. But I'm pretty sure it's more of a hardware problem than a software problem. So I don't know, guys. I would definitely go on the subreddit of the LG G6 and kind of see, and if you have questions, definitely ask them there. Or if anyone has questions, leave them down in the comment section below, and other people with an LG G6 can answer those questions. But from what I'm reading, my personal unit didn't have it. My LG G2 had boot looping issues, but my G6 didn't. So I'll leave it at that. There were also some other hardware problems people stated, but I pretty much see those things stated with almost every single phone. Like, oh, my Bluetooth isn't working, my GPS is weird. I see those kind of questions on a lot of phones, even iPhones. So that's pretty much where I'll leave it at that. So, and also another huge thing, prices have actually decreased quite a bit in the used market. I would not even recommend buying this thing new anymore, but I would definitely recommend buying it used, but more so that certified refurbished, but I'll get into that in a second. So last year they were around the $175 mark. That's about how much I paid for mine. And now they're actually for around $100. So about a $75 discount if you think about it. And this phone really hasn't gotten any worse since last year. It's still getting another update probably. So for $100, you're getting a very, very decent phone in my opinion. And you know, to answer the question, is it still worth it in 2019? I'll say probably, like, I think so. I really like this phone. The build is awesome. It has a great screen, and it still has a little bit of life left in it in terms of software for Android Pie. There might be some custom ROMs out for this thing too, but I really wouldn't recommend custom ROMing it until the support is done. But really the only downsides are the things that users suggested, like the boot loop issues and other hardware problems like that. But you know what? One of the phones that I used the longest out of all my phones ever owned, like I said, was the LG G2. And I never had any issues when I owned it, but once I stopped using it, that's when the issues started happening. So kind of take that as it is. If you want to buy it used, you can go ahead, but what I would recommend is probably buying a certified refurbished. That way you're covered if a boot loop issue happens. You will still be covered with the warranty. It's definitely like more than a couple weeks, things, couple months. Definitely read the fine print. But I'll link the cheapest one I find on Amazon in the link below, so you don't have to go and make an eBay account. If you already have an Amazon account, you can go buy it through there, and you'll actually be helping out the channel at the same time, so we can make more videos like this and do more giveaways, things like that. We're about to hit 100K, so it's about to get super crazy. Hopefully I can afford to do more giveaways, hopefully, but definitely get the LG G6 through that link, or really if you want any phone or literally anything, just get it through that link on Amazon. You'll be helping out the channel with every purchase, and it doesn't cost you any extra money. So that is pretty much it, man. If you have any questions or anything like that, leave it down in the comments section below. Hit that like button. That don't mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber we get really does count, so it don't mean so much if you guys could hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel, all those links are linked down below. I would really appreciate if you guys could check it out. But more importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.